black storm coming. See the lightning strike. Black people rising.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Umoja Circle. My name is Keith Smokey Johnson, and this is part two of a two-part series that I am putting on to express how I feel about the need to understand how important the study of history is. It's not just a bunch of dates and times. For those of you who are new to the show, the Umoja Circle is an African-centered talk show whose purpose is to correct errors where errors are found, and to introduce facts where we find that so many people are working on fiction when it comes to who we are as people of African descent. And on the first part of the show, I introduced a statement by a great black scholar and Stanford-trained psychologist who said this statement that had a profound effect on me understanding, because I always believe here in the Umoja Circle that the history is the light that illuminates the present moment. And if you don't understand the past, the complexity of the present moment is going to be confusing. And also in the word the present moment, how I left the last show, I was saying that the word present, if you understand P-R-E and then the S-E-N-T, is actually the pre-sent moment. So the present moment was sent by you, by your experience and choices that you made or what's going on around you from the past. And how you deal with the present moment will indicate the direction you go into the future. So you cannot understand the present moment which grows out of the soil of the past. They're together, okay? And this is the statement that I want you to understand when we talk about why we need to understand what that happened long ago and those people are long dead, and why it should affect how we deal with racism and sexism or anything like that. But I'm focused on the racism that black people have to deal with today. And you see the same patterns that's what knowing your history allows you to understand. And he said that the actions of a community, that means the original community, whether it's the founding fathers or the founders of Black Wall Street or the founders, the first senators and congressmen who went into black congressmen who went into Washington in during Reconstructions, who established the first thing they did was you people of the South is to establish public schools. Those were some of the policy of those black people that were voted into office in the 1870s, okay? But that's the action of those communities. The original becomes the experience of that generation, okay? And the experience of that generation become the history of the next generation. That's what we read. That's what Carter G. Woodson is telling us, to read about those generations in the past. While the history of several generations past those events becomes the traditions of a people. And I'm talking to you, white America, the traditions of 400 years of domination in how you define black people as the N-word, or how you define, the founding fathers define the people that look like me, and many of you out there as 3/5 of the human being. The systems that were in place in which white males were always dominant. You don't realize, or people don't recognize, that the first affirmative action law that was put in place in this country was the Constitution. Remember, think about that. The Constitution did what? It established the position of white males in this country. Who gets the jobs first? Who runs all the systems? The political system, the economic system, the military system, the limited educational system. White men. Isn't that affirmative action? But if you don't know that history, then you'll get confused by the rhetoric that happened in 1964 and the law that tried to even the playing field for people that look like me. It wasn't to take over those systems, not because people were not prepared for that system. Black people always had to do 5 or or 3 or 4 times better just to even get to the level that they had. So we were always prepared, and we were always, when we went to any job, we were always at our best. And how dare you say that we were inferior to that because you are a white male, established by the Constitution. I'm not making this up. Established by black codes that said that we cannot gather together, but unless a white person is in there. We established together for thousands of years. We had armies. We had imperial systems. We had the great Ghana Empire from 300 BC to 1250 AD. We dealt with the Olmecs, in 900 BC, and you're going to tell us that we can't carry arms or we can't fly? How dare you? That's what we have to deal with. That's why we have Black History Month, to reestablish that Black history is also American history. We were there at Bunker Hill. We were there, we were inventing planes. When the White brothers were inventing theirs, we were inventing cars. We had our own banks, and then you acting like somehow we are inferior. Still talking about today when you attack, DEI programs. The first DEI program, let's just say, was the Constitution. Please believe me. Go on. Let's go to the next slide. Without an accurate understanding of our ancient ancestors and their African past, we are then finding ourselves in a constant struggle with who we say we are as a people, and is the African aspect of ourselves we say we are when we call ourselves African American. What is that African part of ourselves? I'm an African American. What does that mean? The African part. If you don't understand that African part of you, then you're not fully fleshed out as a person in America. There's a constant contradiction, be based on somebody else's definition. How could you counter that if you don't know thyself? You find that term in all the temples of ancient Kemet, what the Egyptian, the foreigners called Egypt. Let's go on to the next one. Having a proper education in Black or African American history courses in this country is the most important way to have the best kind of open, healthy, and honest dialogue of how race in America has shaped this country's concept of culture, democracy, economics, and citizenship. Race has done that. This concept of race established by the white dominant group. This is a caste system, folks. What was established in 1776 was not a democracy. There was a word used that way, but how it was carried out. How can you have a democracy when there was a large portion of your population under enslavement? That the principles of the action did not match up. But you can't have a proper dialogue, an honest dialogue, and how race always shaped America. That American history, again, like I said in the first show, that we talk about when we talk about the Compromise of 1820. Or the Missouri Compromise, where you can't go, slavery couldn't go north of the 36 degrees, 30-minute latitude, but you're not told that that's the northernmost climb that cotton could be grown, where people of us tilled the land. When you hear about people going into the up into the Alleghenies and all those other things, Black people were up there too. We existed in America, but you can't have that. How did we earn our citizenship? It wasn't given to us. 200,000 Black men in the Army and the Navy during the Civil War earned that right. Okay, education was important to Black people because we were denied it. Like I said in the first show, that the first congressmen and senators that were Black that went into Washington in representing their states, which was predominantly in the South, were the ones who put into place that opened up the public school system to Southern children, Black and white, because it was those Black senators and congressmen, some of the earliest legislations that they did. And they got a system today, want to get rid of the Department of Education because of bitterness, all right? Right now in 2020. If you don't understand what's at stake, you only can do that with a historical knowledge. Let's go on to the next point. You cannot separate yourself from your own unique history as a people in any society and believe you can work together and be involved in a collectively earning community, okay? Collectively earning community wealth or in the critical development of your community and social power. Without economics is a community, is a collective thing. For example, community economics is a team concept, not an individual. Every man or woman for themselves. You can't have every man or woman for himself and have a community. It's a team. The money must circulate the community from everybody. It generates jobs communally. It generates a better environment communally. You cannot do that, and that's an African concept. It's a human concept, but it definitely we brought it with us from Africa, okay? We're hearing now I'm hearing a lot of these younger folks talking about, I'm gonna get mine and all this stuff, I'm gonna do myself, or what, that's that you're using other people's language, the people who dominated you, who insulted you, who enslaved you, you're using their knowledge and their definition to articulate your reality and send you off in a wrong direction because you do not know who you are. Let's go on to the next. How a community's economic wealth and social power are used to better develop and benefit itself as a community in America is intimately related to historical knowledge. That's my point. Having historical knowledge is much more than memorizing historical dates and times. Oh, history is boring. Come on, there's a reason why it's given to you in such a way that you are turned off. Nothing is done without a purpose. In order to understand a person or a system, you must unmask their interest. And their interest is not to make you equal in knowledge or equal in society. Understand that fact. Let's go on. Carter G. Woodson did. That's why he gave us Black History Month. Okay. Let's go to the next one. To better understand Black America's chances to succeed in this country, it is the function of having a knowledgeable foundation in Black studies so that we can draw the proper lessons from our past historical experiences here in America. That's the theme of the show. To be able to ask the right questions in the present moment, today, right now, such as what factors produce these specific conditions the majority of African Americans find themselves in today. What are the factors? I hear that all over the internet, but how many people know that history? How can those questions be answered, young folks, if there's no historical knowledge of self? Let's go on. That's why the goal of any history class we get today should be to teach the students to know the elements of the present moment they live in. You know, you learn those elements, but they're based on past. Again, they were based on past events. They go together. American history is Black history. Let's go on. To truly understand the present, you must first understand the precedents that was set to get to this moment. The precedent. You cannot understand the present without understanding the precedents that brought you to this present moment. How could you think in any other way? And they want you to think contrary to that. That you're supposed to know the present moment and what's going on. If you have a survey of many college students today who don't have any historical knowledge, you hear some of the crazy answers, or I don't know. I just voted because it sounds interesting. Okay, and look at the mess we got ourselves in as Americans today in 2025. Come on, let's go on to the next one. The accurate study of our history as a people of African descent in this country is how we are made aware of, along with the gifts of having a clear and concise understanding of what came into the present from our past. What's the gifts? How are we losing affirmative action? How are we losing many of the laws that came out that gave us the right that hundreds and hundreds of black people throughout from the at least from the 1800s, all those soldiers who died that are buried in Arlington that are black, all those persons who persevered after World War I and who did not get any of the GI Bill, but still persevered. We weren't given any right to Levittown, the first suburbia in the 1950s. We were sent into the places that was evacuated by white immigrants who were first sent to what we call the ghettos today. But they were white, and they were able to go into suburbia. They were able to get the loans that the soldiers, the white soldiers who fought in World War II, got the loans that let them get out of the ghettos. But black folks, because of redlining of the 30s, the segregation of redlining, black soldiers who were right next to them fighting in Germany, fighting in Italy, dying in foreign lands, came home and they couldn't get those loans. All the things that you read about Franklin Delano Roosevelt did, all those programs that somehow was given to the soldiers, the GI Bill, black men could not use those things. They had it, but when they went into this segregated America, they were denied, hoodwinked, and given, and always directed into poor quality homes, or poor quality neighborhoods, or poor quality school system. It wasn't because of who we are, in which they're trying to tell us today that we're not qualified. It was white America, you, who put us there with the laws that you put in place under segregation. That DEI was created to fix. Okay, and now you want to take that and use that as an excuse to disengage us again and resegregate us again, which might be good in some points. I'm saying the truth. Because even under those type of conditions, we had our Black Wall Street. We had our own black companies. We had our own baseball teams. We gave all that up based on what was taught, the promise of the 1964 under the Civil Rights Act. And just like the Native people who did treaties in the 1600s and the 1700s, that public land that was sold off to the Europeans, during the land rush of the 1880s, that was public land. That was based on treaties that were given to the Native people who owned that land and said it will be held by the United States of America. But what did we do? In 1862, they did the Homestead Act, and they gave that land dirt cheap to all those Europeans that were coming in from all over there, and they sent them west, and that's how you had all these white towns. That's why you had all this, Michigan and Ohio and all of them came into being. The land was given to them free, and then we were told that we were given 40 acres of a mule in the 1870s, and it got reneged by President Andrew Johnson after Lincoln was killed. Again, we have to understand that American history, because we are being told that we did not earn our right in America, that we were given things, when the reverse has always been the American truth. But it has been edited out and we were given a mythological rationale that makes no sense because it does not fit the reality. The victims became the ones who so-called benefited. No. Hell, we didn't even benefit from the Civil Rights Act of 1964. White women benefited from it. Okay? All the affirmative actions was dominated by white women. Okay, let's get that straight. That's the true American history, but the mythology that we're given and the twist that we're told, especially in the political arena today, is that black people invented it, which caused a whole lot of folks to vote against their own interests because they were told that DEI was the cause. We were just given because we were black, not because we earned it, not because we were American citizens too, and you competed with us, and we were just as qualified as you, but because of this conditioning, like I showed you earlier, that the traditions of a people come from a community, and the law that they created 100 years ago that historically has been shaped to look like they benefited from it. They were superior to us. That's why they were in these positions of power, whether it was at NASA, whether it was in schools, whether it was in the military. It was always dominated by white male. That the illusion was they were better at that. No, they had laws and affirmative action laws, like I said, going back to the Constitution and all the laws that came after that said that we're going to put you in that position, and black people always take the underclass position. That's a caste system, folks. You could be a dirt poor white farmer on the same bus stop as Rosa Parks. She could even have college degrees, and she would get on that bus and still have to go to the back of the bus, and that poor dirt farmer could still sit in the front of the bus because of the caste system by law that we have to deal with. That's what DEI tried to rectify and make fair again. And you're saying it's bad today? How dare you? Let's go on to the next one. You learn from historical studies that the present moment is actually embedded in the soil of the past. Let's go on to the next one. A people who take seriously the understanding of their history is a people who recognize this truth, that you cannot fix a problem unless you can see it. If you got a house that is 200 years old like America, are you today in 2025 going to move into that house without seeing the hidden structure that needs to be repaired? And we are told that nothing should change, okay, that the Constitution is perfect. No, it was written because those founding fathers understood that they would leave it to other generations to fix the things that needed to be fixed, that they wouldn't address at that time. And it was always race. They could talk about anything else, but what to do with us as people of African descent and how we would meld in with the dominant group in this caste system, they let us for a future generation. And we're still doing a bad job of it to this day. Okay, you cannot fix a problem unless you can see it. You cannot fix an old house unless you can see the problems within it. You need to check the wiring. You need to check the joists. That is what you have to do. America is an old house that still needs fixing. Let's go on. Historical knowledge is what shines the light on the problem found in the present moment. When you go into the house, you take a flashlight. And you say, well, this is how they used to do things back in the 1700s in this old house. Well, I need to change that or update it or shore it up. The history illuminates that problem. And if you're not taught history, then how are you going? You're just going to move into that whole house? No. I know a lot of guys out there, their wives would never accept the fact that you're going to move into a 200-year-old house without upgrading it and fixing it. America still needs to be upgraded. Otherwise, you see what's happening. That house is bending and shaky right in 2024. Let's go on to the next one. But to put it in another way, the ever-unfolding present is simply the result of an ever-nourishing past. As the present moment evolves and is unfolding itself, is nourished by the soil that it's embedded in, and that's the past. And you cannot function in the present moment to see what unfolds into your future without understanding and nourishing the soil of the past. Let's go on. Today, white America must come to the realization that when it comes to the discussion of race and racism in America, whatever you are wishing away will continue to nibble and gnaw at you until you gather the courage to face that which you rather not see. And that's the problem, white America. You don't want to see the truth. You accept all this stuff, and your cognitive dissonance pushes it away. Or why you bring up that black stuff? Or why is all it got to be about race? Because America was founded on race. The first thing that those founding fathers established, they said in words, democracy, but what they established was a caste system, no different than in India, a caste system where the dominant group, first of all, white men and women, but the ultimate was white males that is trying to reestablish itself today again with this nonsense that you hear it in the news. And then there were white women, but then there was another caste that we blacks and Native Americans and Latinos are in, and those two are different levels. If you are white and you're poor at the bottom of the socioeconomics of the upper class, you're still not black or not Native people. When people say, ask about what happened, why slaveholding white men fought in the Civil War and died by the thousands, the tens of thousands for their so-called country, that's what they call the states. There's one book I read where they asked that question to a mountain man, a Confederate from the mountains of Tennessee who did not own any slaves. He said, I cannot be equal to them. Because in his culture, in that Southern culture, he was still in the caste of whites. He was not into the bottom caste of where black people who were enslaved. How could he be equal to somebody that you were taught from the time you were a child was not even wholly human being? You don't see to understand. Until you understand that history, you won't understand that psychology that still affects us to this day. Rather die on a battlefield at Gettysburg or Antietam or any of those great battles. Those poor white men died and drove to maintain a society and a system that kept them poor, but also at least they were considered white compared to those enslaved people that were horribly brutalized for hundreds and hundreds of years. That's what that Confederate flag means, because that's the society that was fighting against the American flag. Okay, so that's why black folks have a visceral negative response to those Confederate battle flags. That's the social mores, and that's the what it represents to us, a caste that you see us less than you, regardless of what you might think today. If you don't understand the lessons learned in the past, you're doomed to repeat them, and we're repeating it over and over again. I got less than a minute. Let me see if I can get one more in here. This is why black history courses are so very important for us as black Americans, because we cannot intelligently know and choose what is good for us collectively as a people until collectively we can intelligently know, respect, and decide who we are. Who we are. That's why I always have books up here. If you want to understand that, you ain't going to get it on Google. Okay? The history of black America. Okay? These are just one of the many books that I have. Okay? That will help you on that course. John Henry Clark. Okay? Power of African History. But until next time, I hope you enjoy it. Peace. Hotep. Bye-bye.